It's been an amazing morning, filled with heavy hitters and huge announcements. Yeah? Woo! And we're so glad that we get to share it with all of you, our partners, first. Now, I know that's a lot to soak in, but we're not quite done yet. We wanted to present something special this year in what is our annual Ask Me Anything with Tobi. We are, for the first year, going to have Tobi on stage and have a partner come up and ask him the questions. Cara Hogan from Shopify Plus Tech partner Zaius, a commerce content strategist, will be asking Tobi his take on this morning's announcements, as well as asking your unfiltered questions. Please help me welcome Tobi Lütke and Cara Hogan.
So excited we get to sit and relax here a little bit.
How's everyone doing? What's that like? Let's give a round of applause for all the amazing Shopify folks and all the people who have worked back behind the scenes. Like, Unite is a serious commitment, and there's a lot of teams running under that particular ball when it's in midair, and I could not be more proud of this place. It is absolutely fantastic to see this come together. Thank you so much over there. Thank you.
Love it. Could not agree more. So when the Shopify team asked me to come up here and be kind of the partner representative today, do you know what was the fun fact that every single person told me about you, Tobi?
Oh, God. What?
One guess. They all said, oh, Tobi recently interviewed Barack Obama. And I was like, oh, great, I get to follow Obama. Very relaxing.
I think that's perfectly appropriate. So.
Yes. So hopefully I won't do too bad. But I think a lot of people in this room know your background. As an entrepreneur, you went from being a programmer to being a snowboard salesman to founding the company. And along the way, I assume your job has changed a lot. So how have you evolved and shifted and adapted as you've had to change in your role?
Yeah, I mean, yes. It's changed. I feel I have a new job every probably 6 months. I loved every single version of the particular job that I've encountered so far. And I think the common thread has been, I think the reason why I tried to build this snowboard store is because I was just deeply curious about the idea of building a business. I mean, companies are not popular as a concept right now in society. We talk a lot about what all the things are that companies do wrong, specifically a lot of tech companies. But I think every once in a while it's worth stepping back and saying, companies are themselves a technology. They are a fiction that we tell each other. They are a way for a number of people to get together and in a perfectly socially acceptable way spend 8, maybe more hours a day driving into some kind of problem, like something that they think should be changed, right? And they're really the only way. Like if you're trying, like maybe outside of university, if you just say, I don't know, if you're at a party and people ask you, hey, what do you do? It's like, oh, I just follow my curiosity all day long. It's like, it doesn't work. You kind of have to be part of a company to do it. And so this is why I started it. And then, like it went through all these changes. But there was always this next thing to learn. And I think this has just been something that we have incorporated as a core value in the company. We definitely seek the curious people. We seek the kind of people who see something messy, like the way people currently have to finagle to get products to their customers, and say, actually, all of that problem why don't we make that our problem? And that takes a special crowd of people. And those kind of people have showed up along the journey, and I've been incredibly fortunate to be part of it. And I'm the luckiest person in the world. I think I probably won the lottery 5 times in a row, and it's just been incredible.
Love that. And so obviously, not only your role is changing, but this market is changing every day. And one of the biggest trends is direct-to-consumer. We see it everywhere. We all know that it's incredibly powerful. But even direct-to-consumer is now changing. So they're doing unthinkable things like doing partners with traditional retailers like Target and Walmart, or doing traditional advertising campaigns like a billboard or TV ads. Where do you see this market evolving and continuing to change?
I think, so my read is a little bit different on the direct-to-consumer thing. It's a worthwhile label, but I think it actually talks about something much more interesting that's going on. And to see what I mean, you kind of have to look back in history where retail comes from. I mean, in this morning's land acknowledgement, we've heard that people have been trading for tens of thousands of years right here on the spot. I think, like sometimes I hear companies talk about, hey, we're one of the first direct-to-consumer companies. And I always want to say, you know, the blacksmith 2,000 years ago was probably a step ahead of you. It used to be that you went to town square and you went to the town's cobbler, and that was a direct-to-consumer relationship. And the reason why the cobbler was very good at making the shoes for you is because they actually sold you the previous ones. They have seen the used shoes come back for repairs. And there has been this loop of understanding and feedback and learning that was unbroken with a relationship directly with consumers. Now, I should acknowledge that this was an experience that probably only the more affluent had. And of course, what the Industrial Revolution afterward has done is it democratizes access to the kinds of products that previously was only available to the more affluent. But because of the intricacies of the people who made the products were no longer directly connected to the people who then consumed the products, we built this infrastructure of department stores and disintermediation because there was no other way to power the retail at this point of time. That has severed this link, and therefore I think products have suffered in quality. And so I think what the direct-to-consumer thing is actually us all saying and raising our hands and saying, you know, that ideal state of retail, in a more inclusive way that is accessible to more people, we can unsever this link again and directly connect you to your customers so that you can actually make the products directly with the kinds of people who are then consuming them and are in this relationship which leads to much better products. And this often happens in a digital native way because this is just simply the best substrate for creating these kind of businesses. And so we see much, much better quality products appearing, and therefore we see people consuming them at much faster adoption levels. And it's not, it's more about the quality than about the internet component in it, and that's my read. The fact that now afterwards you see the superior products make it on the shelves of a Target, or these companies starting retail stores or billboard ads. I mean, those I think are just simply functions of these being very well-run businesses, and you know, I think everyone in this room knows customer acquisition on things like Facebook and Google is getting rather expensive, and it turns out that starting a retail store is often a cost optimization in comparison. And billboards are actually potentially underappreciated and so on. So I think all the tactics end up being used by these companies, which just have been built around a very direct connectivity with their users.
So what you're saying is we're all just blacksmiths.
Yeah. I think we're all kind of idealizing the, maybe not all, maybe it's just me. I think we're idealizing, I'm idealizing this town square and working with the artisans and craftspeople. We just have this deep love for the problem they are solving and this deep task understanding.
And so with that in mind, how are you building the future of Shopify and trying to serve the needs of this evolving market? What products do you feel like are really going to help that? Obviously, we just heard about all kinds of exciting new announcements like fulfillment and enterprise products, but what do you think is going to make the biggest impact?
I mean, I do think, I mean, you just saw a rendering of our strategy, so I don't have anything to add at this moment. But I do think that the experience, like the fulfillment experience, is a part of it. I mean, the kinds of people who signed up early for Shopify in the early days were attracted to Shopify because it was one place where you could start an online store and also make it look like your own, like this. This is your brand, like just as you as a shopkeep would design, like hand design all the details of the experience of a customer entering your store. We felt that the online equivalent of this would be having full control over, your templates, the way the store looked. Most people were attracted from the beginning to the platform, and extending this to the packaging that you prioritize in, and the quality of experience and commitment that comes from a fast delivery are really important components of this. But zooming out further, there's still a lot of things difficult, a lot of things wrong in this thing. I don't think Shopify is ever satisfied with the product it is.
No great entrepreneur is.
Exactly, and I think if we would take but we don't even have to go back that far, but just for illustration purposes. The Shopify as it was during the first Unite 4 years ago, if this would exist right now, it would have no hope of competing. It would be hopelessly outdated. And it would let all its customers down because, I mean, just of the things we talked about today, we highlighted it a little bit, but having 3D models of your products might double your conversion rate. That is clearly industry specific, but I think this will develop very quickly to the point that if you are a furniture store of any significance and you don't have these features available to yourself so for your customers to actually try the couch in their living room to see if it actually fits, I don't think you are going to sell one because there's going to be a lot of other folks who will be able to offer that. And I think potential every time some significant change happens when it comes to technology is that the people who are going to be there to offer it are already big. It's like IKEA is fine. IKEA has had 3D models for everything they've built for a long time because their catalog, which they publish, is actually 3D rendered. So they're ready, but it's like what excites us at Shopify is to make it so, and Craig acknowledged this, that the furniture store would just decided to put an online store presence together actually has all they need to compete and enter this global marketplace, get to the point where they have 10 or 3 orders a day initially, after which we can start helping them deliver their products, which then feeds back into the experience of the customers to try to bring this to much more significant levels. And the more parts of this journey we can assist with, the better it gets.
Yeah, I love that idea of assisting any customer, no matter how small they are or how large they are. I think that's very admirable. And so you also have a unique perspective on the market, obviously. And everyone always likes to talk about the future. What are you going to predict? All of that. But I want to give you a specific timeline. So next year at Unite, we're all here, hopefully. And what do you think will be different? What do you think will be the same? What do you think will matter the most?
Well, this is like when my entire team goes like, oh my God, I hope he's not going to answer that. I think Shopify is probably easy to understand company. I think all of you have a sense for the kinds of things that we are likely working on. I think Shopify is driven towards pain. Wherever there's pain in the experience of building the kinds of business that we celebrate on stages like this, where we are trying to understand why this is painful, in which particular way this is painful, how history conspired to, at this point, make this particular thing painful. What the atomic building blocks are that conspire to keep that status quo intact, and where Shopify can become active to make the necessary edits that will eventually make this pain go away. There's a completely infinite amount of such pain. There is enormous amounts of uncertainty about the future. There are tidal waves from all these different technologies that are coming, that are going to hit the industry. There's going to be, I would say that there's a lot of worthwhile conversation about the future of work, about the way the nature of work might change with AI and similar technologies, and automation in general, and robotics coming sort of into their own. And I think what is I just heard cha-ching here. That's good. That's nice work. And I think this is what we where we want to have a conversation about how far can we take this idea of making it more approachable and simpler for more people to reach for their own independence and build the kind of businesses that they might always have wanted to build. This is I've talked at various previous Unites about this. But one of the most remarkable things that Shopify has figured out, and this is, I could not be happier about this being true because it was my bias going in, and then the data confirms it, which is always the best thing data can possibly be doing, is that the demand for wanting to have a business is obviously huge, right? Like who doesn't want a profitable side business or main business? And the problem is why there is not, why the supply and demand doesn't meet is mostly around the concept of friction. And so what we found is that ever we are taking something that is a significant hurdle in the process of building one of those businesses, and we manage to make a significant change to this, or even just file away at the jagged edges of it, just somehow smooth the learning curve that people have to go through. If we do this, it's not just more convenient to the people who would have succeeded anyways, the people who showed up with the grit or the unfair advantages to overcome these challenges. It's like just a handful of fewer people are giving up. And that makes all the difference, because that means every time we make one of those changes and just say, hey, again, this sounds silly, but yeah, like shipping a T-shirt costs a different amount than shipping a rare record. And you know that, and you want to do this. And allowing your first assumption about how you could potentially do this in the software to be then correct, and the software doing its part of a bargain, means you're not going to give up. And you're actually going to potentially launch the store, and then you become one of those people who experiences one of those cha-chings and for the first time. And that day may very well be one of those days which is going to end up being branded in your memory. You will know everything about this day, exactly where you were, and that ends up being the day where you have become from someone who built something into to being an entrepreneur, which I think is a incredibly important event on the level of an individual, on potentially the level of a family, on the level of a family's history. It's like my grandma was an entrepreneur, and that's how we knew her. And at some point, that's because the first customer walked into her copy shop, and that happened. But it's even zooming out further. It's important on the level of society. Against this backdrop of a world where potentially the nature of work changes, where there potentially is less employment in certain industries. The way to solve this is not creating a couple technology mega companies that are supposed to employ everyone. What we need is we need to millions of independent small businesses that provide great employment for 10 to 20 people. That is what the economies need from us. And so I don't see a lot of push into this direction. And so what I would hope that we talk about at Unite are these topics and the kinds of things that might seem insignificant, but mean that more families experience a story like this, and that more people succeed. And then, as the people who are then creating these businesses and stick with the business and scale these businesses, increasingly run them as global businesses and be able to do this with little friction, then eventually seamlessly convert into a world where they run a store per market or develop these sub-brands, turning this into not a board of director level decision and a 3-month hiring plan for new staff, but rather turning the creation of a new store and a new territory into a lightweight operation that might just be a single click. Smoothing this particular learning curve and going further and accomplishing this and productizing this and doing all this and creating as much surface area as we possibly can to enable everyone in this room to give everything you have back into this community and teach us and show us much better ways that we could ever have imagined and to support the people who are on their own journeys. Those are going to be the topics and hopefully a couple of surprises along the way.
Yeah, it's a very different version for the future. So that's enough questions from me. We want to actually move into the AMA portion where we've put together a list of questions that all of you have submitted on the app, so thank you for doing that. So, first question. Given that Unite is all about partners, can you speak to the MailChimp breakup? Tons of pointing fingers on both sides. What happened and how can we avoid it? You guys don't pull the punches on the questions, just saying.
Okay. Well. So first off, this is funny. So Shopify for Town Hall, we do AMAs as well, and it's upvoted by the company, and it's anonymous, and I don't get to see the question, and it always starts exactly like this, with like something that unfortunately I have to think a little bit about. The MailChimp situation is really unfortunate, but it revolved around something which is hard for us, or actually is fundamentally impossible for us to compromise on. And I think that shouldn't be too much of a disclaimer, because I think everyone knows and understands this, but Shopify prioritizes the merchants. They are the stars. There's no Shopify without the merchants. There's no partners without the merchants. There's no ecosystem. There's nothing. They are supreme. We tell their stories. We appreciate them. We talk to them on the phone every day. We build for them. We enable them. With MailChimp, we got into a really unfortunate and kind of silly issue around, it was, we needed what's it called, the unsubscribed data from the mailing list. It doesn't seem like this big a thing, or so I thought, but when you use MailChimp and someone unsubscribed from a mailing list, then obviously they know that. What we said is, we need to know this, and the reason is so that we can tell every other app that can send emails. Because if we can't tell every other app that sends emails about this, then they might inevitably send emails to people who have unsubscribed, and that is actually a violation of a lot of local laws around the planet. So therefore, we needed this data. We got into a situation that became untenable for them, and then we needed a timeout. Just be clear that this happened not out of sudden. This involved the conversations. They knew exactly. This was the agreed course of action. I don't know why, but that's where we ended up, and so that's the situation.
I do like the idea of treating MailChimp like a 5-year-old that needs a timeout. So next question, what are some of the ways Shopify's partners can give back to the community? Are there Shopify school programs or something similar that we could contribute to?
I love that. This is one of the more gratifying things with Shopify, and it's the company's sort of expansion. I actually participated in an apprenticeship program to learn computer programming in Germany. In Canada, we managed to be able to put something like this together, working with local universities. It's called Dev Degree, which is, I think, a maybe not superior, but definitely a very important additional potential of educating people. I think this comes from a position of early insight, is that if you give eager, bright people an opportunity, then this is going to be made worth your while. It's amazing what happens when you just trust people when no one else does. And so I could really encourage you all to figure out ways of, give those internships or allow people to get the experience of working in one of those companies. So like these amazing companies that you all are building, it always seems basic, and you think everyone knows what these things look like, but they really don't. Most people don't understand what a company looks like. Most people don't understand what it really feels like. And these are very, very, very modern companies that all the people in this room are building. And the kinds of lessons that we don't even acknowledge are lessons are often life-changing events in the personal stories of those people we can take chances on. I would just say, though, that one of the things that is really important to acknowledge is that there is a great cohesion in the very thing that we all are working on and the social good. I am exceptionally comfortable with where Shopify sits in society. The side effects of Shopify's success is that more entrepreneurship in the world happens, which I think we can all talk about, acknowledge is a very good thing. The stories I love sharing, like last year at Unite, I talked about this wonderful furniture store on Fogo Island, which is an island off an island in the middle of the Atlantic. This store is completely integrated into the global world of commerce from this incredibly remote place. I recently had the opportunity to visit the craftspeople there. So there are a lot of places in very remote areas that can really use all of our help. And there's any kind of incentives or just nudges that you can do, potentially discounting in very remote places, in reserves, in sub-Saharan Africa, in all these places where maybe opportunity just doesn't hit people the frequency that we might see in a city like Toronto, is actually a way for you, through the very thing that your business does, to make things better in a meaningful way. Because I just don't think we need this separation that is, go into the world of capitalism, make your money, and then invest into social good and at another phase of your life or through some kind of programs. Those programs are great. Let's do them as well. But let's acknowledge that the very thing that we are helping our customers with actually has a very meaningful social impact in these communities, especially in the more remote areas.
I also just wanted to say thanks to Matt Schlitt for that question. I forgot to give him credit. So next question. Looking over this list, we had a lot that focused on international. There were questions about Japan, Israel, India, and others. So I'm going to try to sum it up in one question. We've heard about how Shopify is focused from a product standpoint as it relates to multi-currency and multi-language. But what are you most excited about going international, and where do you see the opportunity? That's an anonymous one.
Going international has been fascinating from the inside. I mean, I grew up in Germany. I moved to Canada. But those are not terribly unlike countries, but I think people still underestimate how much culture matters. And for from an internal perspective, for the company to just understand all the norms that are different in Japan compared to Portugal, is just one of those. This is actually so much more valuable than just the product customization we are making. This is actually meaningful on a sort of personal growth level. And so I think we have taken a very English-speaking perspective to Shopify for the early years. This was really painful for me. You can imagine every time I visited my family at home, they were like, okay, Tobi, what's going on here with Shopify in Germany? We had to do this because building a company initially requires trade-offs, and that's the one trade-off we made. So it's been super gratifying to now get into this mode where we can help people, like where we become ourselves a much more global company, and we take all the learnings that we are having about setting our own companies up for being global to our customers and markets. And in many cases, what we realize is there is no one solution definitely not for the world. Increasingly, developing the APIs and the partner platform has always been a fantastic idea. But specifically, as we've taken Shopify global, we realized just how good of an idea this was, because in so many cases, the better position for us to take is to create APIs that enable local customization rather than trying to make something that works everywhere, because I think that is a losing battle. And so I think we learn a lot about ourselves in different countries. People have, if you think that the quality of your work is good enough to ship, wait until you launch in Swiss. Specifically, Germany is pretty up there too, but there are some cultures where the minimum acceptable quality is so much higher than North America. Is really remarkable. So it's humbling and actually riveting, and I think it makes us better at building software, and it's such an opportunity for our customers. Again, going global is a big decision. It's very, very hard, it's fraught with complexity, and those are the areas that we have a weird company that gets really excited over things that everyone else hates. So we are excited to try to help as much as we can.
Great. Next up is, what do you see as the future of e-commerce, given all the talk of headless, which is, sidebar, I feel like one of my least favorite words for an exciting concept.
Yeah, of all the things to be, headless doesn't seem to be one of them. Yeah. Sure,
but that question comes from Robin Smith.
I mean, I've seen this play out many times now. It's amazing how powerful words are. Words are handles for concepts, really, right? It was always really hard to reason about the things that you could do with all the APIs that something like Shopify has, by actually explaining, you can use this, and then this, and then this, and then you have your own website, and you control everything, and you can sell, and still using all of Shopify's technology. Cool, just call it headless, and then suddenly it's something that people can reason about. I would say that Shopify has been able to power headless commerce since probably 2008. I think it's valuable that there's an industry term now that helps shed more light on the possibility of people doing this. I don't think it's the future of the industry. I think it's the future of a specific, people with very specific needs. I think Shopify wants to have our own online store to be so good that it shouldn't matter. You shouldn't want to be replacing it. There's a lot we are doing. Tomorrow you will hear from Jean-Michel about performance. There's a lot of things we're doing on a checkout for accepting local payment methods and allowing the integration of apps now and pick up local and so on. But if you try to replace all these things, the problem is now you're basically you left the train. You're on a station, and at some point, likely you will want to jump back on this train again, and that tends to be a fairly painful experience. Now, if every rule, if you know exactly what you're doing, do it. It's a good idea. But as we are looking and seeing more people wanting to do this, one thing that's important to us is make it so that we give people the APIs so that they don't actually have to, if Shopify picks up, or Apple Pay or something emerges, or AR becoming a very important ingredient, that you don't actually then have to launch your own development program of a couple of months to just draw even with what the rest of the platform has. That's really important, and so this is what we're looking at.
So I want to squeak in one more question before we wrap up. So we had a few questions on AR and VR, including how you're working with partners to make AR models of store products. So how is AR playing a role in your future roadmap? What does it mean to commerce? And any thoughts on that overall theme?
I think it's really big. I think, look, the internet is a storytelling medium, and we told stories through static images for most of the history of the web. We have seen over the last 5-6 years a significant shift towards video as a storytelling mechanism, which is a much more human way to experience stories. It's a better fit for the kind of world that we're doing. So just being able to have video properly integrated, I think, was very, very important. And I do think that we can make the entire world a whole lot smaller if people can just really see the products in front of them and reason about them. And I think it's super important that we tooled it. It's really a next step for the quality of experience on the web. It's going to be hard to get the 3D models. This is, currently the only really good way is to employ talented modelers. And I really, really, really hope that the partner community can help set this up, can help give some of the talented people who can do this employment so that you can work with potentially more of a plus side of the house, customers who will be able to afford the custom creation. There's a lot of industry work in the background. There's standard groups for all this that we are part of and we are trying to drive forward. There is a lot of potential because a lot of people have CAD models of their products to create a proper bridge towards 3D models from there to simplify the process. There's billions of dollars of research going into depth sensors and all these kind of tools on the phones to potentially at some point get away from the need to model, although that is still further away. It's going to be a little bit touch and go for a while, but having the models for the flagship products is going to be very valuable from all the data we've seen, and I think that's really exciting.
Great. So anything you want to say to this wonderful audience of partners before we wrap up for the day?
I couldn't be more proud of this company, of this community, of all the things that you've accomplished and built. This is our opportunity to learn so much, so please find people from the team and just tell them, if there is something you like specifically, mention it, but tell us what sucks. That helps so much more, because those are the things we can do the most about. And we are trying to build the perfect fit software for this space. And this is a huge opportunity, and you have such a more direct connection to the people who are then using the software. And so please, please help us. This is a collaboration. When we know what we can build from our side to enable you guys, then we can all supercharge each other. And thank you so much for coming to Unite. This is such a wonderful event, and I know a lot of you made very long trips out here, and so we really deeply appreciate it, and thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. Thanks so much.